Because we used to go to the drive-in theater and pack it full.
Was your first car, were those gifted to you or did you purchase them?
The first one my parents bought for me, and the second one, I made payments like $25 a month to my grandpa for that car.
What about you? Was your first car gifted or was that paid for? Did you pay for it?
It was, I had to work for it, so I bought it myself, and yeah, my parents helped me out at the end, so kind of halfway.
It's fun. I mean,
What about you?
My first car, I think it was like a Dodge Celica, or not Dodge, Toyota Celica. It's brand new. Yeah, I had no business having a car at like 14, and then I wrecked it.
Oh my God, you were 14?
Oh, gosh. Well, I grew up in the country, so my dad worked a lot, like traveled for work, and so since I could get like a permit at 14, my dad's like, here's a car, I'll be back in 3 weeks.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Make sure you go to school.
I mean, I learned how to drive on a tractor because we had hay fields, we had like cattle ranching and all that stuff. So that's how I learned how to drive, with like driving past hay bales, which was like if you hit one, I mean, you're a really bad driver. You're driving a tractor, you should be able to avoid that.
I'm going to ask a little bit deeper question.
Ooh,
We'll start with you.
oh,
Who in your life inspires you to be better?
I would say first person that comes to mind would be Christopher.
Okay, I was like, don't say fictional characters like Jesus or Moses. Or
No, I'm a realist. It's always going to be somebody rooted in truth. So for Christopher, he's always he's just so motivated and structured and supportive, and I think like being able to mimic that or mirror that or in some way embody that, in something that I'm doing, like that's what he inspires in me for sure.
Aww.
Yeah, I mean this morning it was, like clockwork. It's like 7:59, and he's like putting his the recliner seat down and getting up. It's like, well, time to work, because he works from home, so he's like going to and just set up, and we're like, it's like I gotta cut. I'm gonna wait a few more. I was like, every day you could tell they set your watch to it. So I think that's really impressive for him, for sure.
What about you?
I would say my mom. I do talk to her every single day. And
like actually talk or like text or both?
Like talk, like
talk
on the
talk.
phone or even FaceTime.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
On FaceTime?
Yeah. So I would say without a doubt, she is my rock, and yeah, she knows everything that goes on in my life, and I talk to her and my dad every night, and because they live in South Carolina, so it's just me here, and just anything I'm working on, anything I'm trying to work towards, she definitely anchors me in why it's important. So, yeah.
That is so awesome. Yeah. Ace, what about you?
I would say my dad. My dad passed away last year. It's almost been like, it'll be a year and like 4 days.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's been a whole entire year. I would say right now, just because of working so much and doing what I do in the community, it literally has to be some of the friends I made in the past couple of years, but like some that I've really, really developed close relationships with this year. Obviously Wes, Jared Horman, Larry Sharp, Moon, Cece, Korea. Like, it's just, even though I don't see those girls as often as I want to, and some of the boys either, Jonathan Antol, like a lot of these kids that I'm friends with, and I say kids because I categorize myself as a kid too, because I want to be young forever, even though I'm 40. But it does. It's just like the stuff that I see them do, see them post, and also like when I see them in public, when I haven't seen them for a while, and the way that they interact with people, and the way that they like are, it's just like they're always genuine. Everything is out of love. Everything is out of kindness. Everything is out of like extending a branch and an arm and like really that bridge. And that's something that inspires me all the time, because I know that sometimes I get a little bit in my head, and sometimes I get a little bit focused on tasks, and I need to sometimes pull back. And my friends are really good at like, hey, why don't you take a day off and do something fun instead of always like doing your grocery list of work and all of your tasks, and like, be a real person. Yeah. And I love that.
I was going to let you know we're live.
Cool.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. What's your question?
Well, first, let's do a quick introduction, and then I'll ask my question. Cool. So, I'm Wes with KC Care, and I'm joined with...
I'm Ace from Woody's KC, and our special guest today is...
Justice. Justice Horn.
Woo! Oh, Justice Horn, who are you with? What do you do? Are you...
Well, I just say community member.
Oh,
yes. Advocate.
Yeah. Advocate, policy, politics.
Mother lover.
No, really.
Mother lover.
So part of, Ace has asked a question, and I pulled this card. Justice, we'll start with you on this one. What part of yourself are you holding back currently?
Oh my.
Oh, I know, this is such a good one. Yeah.
I'm glad you asked you first.
Holding back currently or have recently held back?
Both.
No, I would, both.
Both,
Yeah. Especially if you move past something, it's good to share that. But yeah.
That's really tough. So I would say, I'll start with what I've recently moved past, and I'm happy we're even doing this in Black History Month. But one thing, and not only growing up in Green Valley and here locally in Missouri, one thing I did hold back was my blackness and being a black individual. And also competing in football and wrestling, they're predominantly white sports, especially here in Missouri. So it's holding back not only more my feminine traits, but also my blackness to just try and survive. And here recently, I would say since the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm proud to be black. Like, I'm black and living in America, and I'm also proud to be black in LGBTQ. So that's something I've tried not to fully embrace and hold back on. And then also, if I have feminine traits, one thing that used to embarrass me was my voice, because I'd say I'm pretty masculine looking, and then you hear me speak, and then I've gotten that. Or I say sis. I say sis a lot. I'm like, ooh, sis. Like, yeah.
Girl.
Like stuff like that. But it's like, I don't care anymore, and I'm not, I'm gonna. It's like one part of coming out, then one part of finding yourself, and then one part of embracing that. It's like continuously, and evolving and just yourself.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So doing all of that and holding back and stuff, and you talked about like growing up and doing sports that were predominantly white and being a black person, but also being a queer person. What was that like in your family structure? I know because I could speak from my experience, but like also I lived in a predominantly like white area when I was younger, and being one of the only POC people, like I definitely feel that struggle, and also being queer, I feel that, but like I had a very supportive father. Yeah. I just grew up with a single dad, but like I always want to ask other kids my age like how that worked for them.
Well, I would say I've had a very, very supportive family, but at the very beginning, when I came out, my parents weren't so supportive. My dad was fine with it, but my mom was. It took her.
Came out as queer, came out as black.
I came out as queer, and I didn't say it, but I come from a Mormon household.
Oh,
so
wow.
That does add
that's a whole other thing.
Oh my god.
So not only that, coming from a Mormon household, but then even being like at the intersection of a lot of ethnicities. So my dad, he is black and indigenous. So his great-grandparents were Blackfoot Indians and house slaves. And then my mom on her side, my grandfather coming from the islands of Tonga, so being Pacific Islander, and then being Caucasian. So Thanksgiving's definitely interesting, and then also putting in religious views in there, and then also Republicans and Democrats, and then also, I'm gay as well. And seeing how the intersection of even the black community views LGBTQ issues, the religious community views that stuff, and it's definitely been a way of grappling and even embracing that. I'm very diverse, and then also seeing how we go about embracing that, because some of my uncles weren't so open to it, and some of my other families who were white were more open to it, and it's definitely been tough,
It's a lot to grapple with.
It is. I mean,
how old are you?
22. I don't say my age either.
Wow.
Oh my god, I did not. I would have. I would have pegged you for older, not for like looks or anything, but just for things that you've done. So I would have pegged you.
That's why I don't say my age.
I'm saying narrative too, just like the way you speak. It's very like. Growing up queer, growing up POC, but growing up in a different section of the country, but also growing up like with different sets of grandparents and parents and like ideologies and even experiences, and having to grapple that as like an American kid, like no shade, like in 2021. Like it's a little bit better now, but I mean, like even it's just interesting because having to go through that dynamic, you know, just my father recently passing, getting closer to my aunt who's 60, and really talking about our family and talking to our family, like her experiences. She came here last week. It was the first time she's ever been to Kansas City. I took her to her very, very first drag show. She's never even seen a drag queen in her life.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Didn't really know or had experienced gay people. Yeah. And when my father died last year, like, I guess I never really hung out with my family or spoke to them. And so when I died, like, she was cool. But then I didn't realize, like, I had to come out to her. And she was like, had no idea. And I was like, my dad never told you? She was like, no. And I was like, this is so wild. And just to see that perspective of, like, her growing up as a really poor Hispanic person and like the stuff that she went through in this last week or whatever, it was great because she opened up and told me stories about like her childhood stuff that my father never told me. And I thought that was interesting, but it definitely, now that he's gone, that conversation with her put a lot in perspective of like he was amazing, but also put a lot of perspective like why he was the way he was and the things that shaped that. I took her to the World War II Museum, Liberty Memorial, and me and my aunt sat there and she shared so much about like I didn't realize my grandfather fought in World War II, what that looked like as, you know, Mexican, Native American person from Mexico and coming to the United States and fighting, and then like I didn't know he was an engineer. I didn't know all the education that he went through and he learned, and it was just such a revelation and such a piece of who you are. And I just, not that you haven't talked about it, I wish I would have experienced that when I was younger. I wish what I would have known. I wish I would have been as close to my family, and as extremely difficult as it is, like you said, like holidays and navigating, like, oh, what do I do? I can't say this. Like, I wish I would have had that experience.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But also as a fat kid, when you were just talking, I was thinking like all these different people coming together for holidays. I'm like, oh, that food must have been so good. Like all of it.
You didn't have just turkey. No, it was like good.
Yeah, I was like, I was so good, probably. Exciting.
My child, and I say child, is 20. So you're only a couple years older than her.
Oh gosh, she could really be your dad.
Literally,
daddy.
So like when I'm thinking about, you know, the generational differences of like what I grew up and you grew up. So did you come out, or when did you come out?
So I had to come out a lot. So I think a lot of queer people do anyways. But not only did I in high school, like my freshman year of high school, it was actually the same exact day I came out to my football team. Same exact day when Michael Sam came out.
Is that what
happened?
Yeah.
That was my follow-up. Yeah,
so I was like, you know, if he could do it at big old Mizzou to his football team, then I could do it at little Blue Springs. And I just did it. And it was, I think I am happy I did it because it was a once in a million opportunity, and he's also a black individual like I am, and I'm like, well, they're obviously my little coming out, and everyone talking in high school about his coming out, and finally grappling with, wow, LGBTQ people can play sports, and what does that look like? And so I came out my freshman year, and then also to my family at the time, and it was kind of swept under the rug. We didn't talk about it throughout high school, and then I would then go wrestle in college where I'd wrestle at Northern State University up in South Dakota, and the Huffington Post actually approached me about an article and how it is about wrestling openly gay, and also making history as the NCAA's first openly gay person of color to wrestle openly. And then that's then a conversation I had with my parents. I'm like, one, I'm a big liberal too, so it's a Huffington Post. So I said, Mom and Dad, I know we have not talked about this in probably 4 or 5 years, but it's like, I have a really good team, I have a really good coach, and the university's behind me, my teammates are behind me, the student body's behind me, and this is like the Huffington fucking Post. Like, so I'm like,
I want to do it.
I said, I know we haven't talked about this in a while, and this is kind of the first time I stood up to my parents, but it's like, I'm going to live openly, and I'm going to tell the world about it. And I know we wanted to talk to the family and eventually do this, but they're just going to have to find out when they do. So I didn't talk to my mom for probably a month. And I'm like, you can either accept me as your son, or I can continue to compete and do good things in the world without you. So that's the first time I had that conversation with her. The article broke, and then all of our family, I mean, nothing but positive remarks. Proud of me, were absolutely amazing. So it's funny, the entire family was behind me except for her. And my dad was behind me. So over a month, we finally had the conversation. And I told her, you know, me being gay is not changing me. I'm still going to go to college. I'm still going to wrestle. I'm still going to do activist work. And I'm still going to be me. It's like, the only difference is that people know now. And it's like, I'm not going to change who I am just because people know about my sexuality. So that was, it was in high school, then in college, and then kind of anytime we're in discussions or...
Does it feel like every time that you do it that it gets easier? That do you gain more from it, or is it just like, oh, here we go through the motions again?
Let me come
this person doesn't know me.
Yeah,
just to get you up to speed.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a hassle, because I would say that a lot of people don't get it from me naturally, so I have to bring it up. So a lot of, and I would say I don't bring up my age either, because in the realms I am, policy and politics, once you say your age, they treat you completely different. So it's a seniority thing, and who's been in the game the longest time. But if I don't say my age, and they have mad respect for me, so I don't say my age. But I mean, there are plenty of times in meetings where I talk on LGBTQ issues, and they're like, "Well, let's let the community talk," and I'm like, "Actually, I'm openly gay." So they're like, yeah. So it's like I center that, and they're like, "Well, you're not part of that community or people," and I'm like, "Actually, like." And it's Andrew if I talk on indigenous stuff or Polynesian issues. Like, they're always like, I think people just think I'm black and white, but I'm same percentage.
I think a lot of people in America see things as just black and white.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, you either talk on these situations because they're important to me, and or I have personal experience. I'm well aware of not taking up space where I don't need to be.
In those situations where you have that pushback from individuals, is it primarily like white males, or? And I'm just saying, because when you talked about seniority, those individuals maintain their power structures and don't want to lose that, and so. If you're coming into that space, more I would imagine it's white males and maybe one or two females, but it's like
no, it absolutely is, and that's why. I mean, it's white males. I mean, not only nationally, but you see the local news and people here in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. It's white males who have been around the longest time, but it's like. I feel, I mean, yes, I'm new to this space, but we learn every day. And how do you think anyone's going to get experience? You give them experience. But also, when we talk about the black vote and the urban court, let people from those communities speak on those issues. I just hate seeing older, white, cisgender, straight men talk politics and talk about the urban vote or the Latino vote or the LGBTQ vote. It's
you can't do that.
It's like sidestep and let these people talk for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's why it's, I will admit it's definitely been a big opportunity for me, because there's just kind of a power vacuum, because we've just had people that aren't from communities of color talking for communities of color. Mm-hmm. So it's, trying to not only uplift our community, but also empower our community in certain ways with either a commission or advancing black policy or advancing indigenous policy, and it's...
what would you say is different now to bringing those individuals to the table? Like, how is it different now? Like, as you've been involved, have you seen it change over the years, or especially with, touching on the past 6 months with the protests from the summer for racial justice? How has that catapulted any shift in the way those conversations go now?
No, I think absolutely. I think when we talk about any kind of systemic problem in our city, if it's with either healthcare access, housing, or gentrification on truce, and so on and so forth, I think, and even criminal justice, and when we see black people being slain in the streets, I think the conversations are different, because not only is it centering the voices who are disproportionately affected by those problems, but I think over the past 6 months, I've seen a lot of coalition building, not only with the Black Lives Matter movement here in Kansas City. a big portion of the crowd was white, were LGBTQ, were Latino. I mean, the Latino community came out heavy for us in the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think with every single issues with that, the work we're doing, the work Casey Tenants is doing to end evictions, to the houseless initiative. I mean, we're seeing coalitions of people. Although it may not be their problem, they're making it their problem. And I think we'll do amazing things with that, because I think we move and operate in a society where they're like, well, it's not affecting me, then I don't need to worry about it. And I love that everyone's making it their problem and jumping in and trying to help.
Well, and I love that, they're solution focused. They see the problem and they're like, we can fix this. We can solve it. Like we had, I can't remember her name now, from last week with No Shaming KC, and she saw that there was an issue that women weren't, or individuals weren't able to access like feminine hygiene products, and that was a need. And so she just coalesced some individuals around that problem to find a solution. And I think that's a lot of what you're talking about. Like, and the KC Pride Community Alliance is another organization that saw a problem and it's coalesced individuals around finding a solution. And I think that's such a powerful thing in Kansas City that we've seen take place over the last 6 months.
And I guess I'll talk about this.
I don't know if that's good or bad, though.
Yeah.
I think that it's awesome that our community is coming together, but I really feel like talking to Nick Kane, talking to KC Pride, even before 2 weeks ago when we talked with 4 different organizations, Black Panther, the Houseless, whatever,
I think the White Rose Project.
Yeah, White Rose. Like all of these coalitions, all these projects, all these things. It's like what I'm seeing is community coming together, but what I'm not seeing is the elected officials actually helping and doing something or even implementing these ideas.
Right? Yeah, I was like, how do you take that grassroots movement?
Because it's working.
That coalition
because
building.
It's working. Because even last week Nick Kane, her going through and being able to distribute all these products, and I'm like, I love that you're doing that, but why is our local government not doing that for you? Why are even taking your idea and be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for putting this together. We didn't realize that. Let's take this burden off your back. Let's take this burden off your back as Black people, as Latino people, because we're the ones that are in charge that you've elected. Instead of why are we getting elected and getting paid all this money, and you're doing all the legwork, and then you're also still doing and carrying out the work. Yeah. Those are the things that I don't understand. Do you have any? Did you shed light on anything?
How do you get your elected officials to make change?
And because it's obviously working with these organizations.
Yeah, so
they're being successful. They're getting people to donate. They're distributing accurately.
And so I have a lot of faith in our city leadership, but their kind of world and their mandate is very much to stay elected and be elected. And this goes
maintain
for
their power.
Not only the mayor, but a lot of our city council people. We have a lot of allies in city council, like Councilman Bunch, Councilwoman Boo.
What is allyship really in right now, especially in politics and bigwigs?
Yeah,
except for it's just a name.
I was going to get there. So I think one thing we have a problem with in this city is what's politically savvy and what's the right thing. So when we talk about these organizations doing community work, they're not elected officials. So all they care about is doing the right thing and doing everything in their power and resources to do that.
Shouldn't our city officials be doing the same thing?
So our city officials will only do the right thing if it benefits them staying
elected. That's what I'm saying.
Why
can't you do both? And
why can't political be the right thing?
If the right thing, that would
why
be.
can't it be
but what we also see
thing?
is sometimes when good organizations like Houseless United and all of them have fought for that warming center and stuff like that, then sometimes when political leaders see an opportunity to co-opt that, they sometimes mess up good work being done because they get involved. So when we talk about our elected officials trying to do good work, I know it's sad, but it has to be them wanting to do that. I mean, everything seems to be political driven, and what does this do to benefit me and center me as either the mayor or a city council person? And that's a very big problem. And a lot of the activist community is seeing that. I mean, that's why they don't work with elected officials, because it's not only you are a public servant, you're not a king or a queen. And what we're seeing is a lot of people only want to get involved if it's centering them or a pat on your back. That's your job as an elected official, to serve your community. So that's why we're not open to kind of giving pats on the back. So that's kind of where I kind of sit in the middle, I would say I have one foot in the activist realm and 1 foot in the political realm. I'm not elected, but I'm also not like my people in Houses United or White Rose that are about the streets, in the streets. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, what are the problems we see here, using all the resources we have here, and if we can't get that, then kind of having some policy shift. A lot of the things I think we see and problems in our community are symptoms of long-standing policies that have been there for a long time. So I think with that we can see policy change, and that's why very, very important bills like the Casey Tenants Bill of Rights or budget season coming up and so on and so forth, or even the LGBTQ Commission. I mean, we have a lot of resources. We've done everything we can as a community, but sometimes we need governing structures to help us as a community and government funding.
Government funding meaning money from the people that these
our
kings and queens, elected officials, are distributing at like their leisure and whatever benefits them and not our community. Yeah. So it's interesting all the time that people are like, government funding, all this. I'm like, that's not government funding. Like, we're paying for that.
Yeah.
The people that are working at fucking McDonald's and people are working like at fucking Starbucks and pumping like your gas, those are the people that's your government funding.
I don't live in Kansas City.
And they should have a voice. And they should have a voice to talk, like, tell you where you want our money allocated. And I don't want to allocate it on the mayor driving a brand new fucking car. I want to allocate it to these people that literally are dying because they have no, like, food. People that are dying because they have no home. People that are dying because there's no heat or anything afforded to them. It's just, it's crazy.
I don't want to miss what you're talking. I don't want to take away from what you're saying. But I'm wondering if, like, do the council members, does the mayor, do those individuals who are in elected positions have term limits? Like, they can only serve a certain amount of time?
Yeah.
Like, I think that takes away some of that political prowess to, I'm doing what I can just to get elected again.
But they're also backed by a lot of people that want to keep them in power because it benefits them as well. Mm-hmm. They're also kept in there because of those things, and also their lobbying and their money and the stuff they come to be reelected are coming from those people that could give a shit less about somebody because they're also driving brand new cars and they're also living in a place that has 3 TVs. You know, I'm no exception. I mean, I'm a little bit more activist and I'm down on the streets, but yes, I do live in a nice space. Mm-hmm. I do have multiple TVs in my home. I do have a whole entire studio that I'm building for shows like this to bring on people, but like, that's to me what I look at. Like with you, it's like there can be a balance. You can have 1 foot in policy. You can have 1 foot in activism. You can be one day at a board meeting in a beautiful suit talking to a bunch of people with money to get them to do what you want to do and serve that. But you could also wear some fucking jeans and like pass out some lunch, pass out some food. You know, give someone a hug. Let them know that they're, you know, a human and that they're valued.
Walk the streets and actually talk to the houseless individuals.
And it's so interesting to me. It's like the only people that I ever really see doing things like that really want to navigate that are the people that are in the streets. I never see people at board meetings and tables they're like, everything in theory is in theory to them.
And I think that's the problem is because you can't...
How do you normalize it? How do you bring them, I won't say down, but like, how do you bring them to another side of like humanity, another side of like what's the reality of what's going on around?
I think it's realizing the only people who can speak on those issues are people who are directly affected. So what we do is bring community members to those board meetings, to those council meetings, to voice those things, because not even I can do that. Is there
any way that we can bring those board meeting people to the community instead of having to have all these marginalized groups and...
Oh, yeah, we can. I mean, if they go to the warming center, if they go to East Truce, if they walk... I mean, I'm not saying everyone in city council is bad people. We have good people like Councilwoman Robinson, Councilman Ellington, Eric Bunch, Councilwoman Boo, and so on and so forth. But those are people that, I mean, no matter if they're in suits and ties or in nice dresses, they'll walk the streets on the weekend. Or I think... the best way to be an elected official is when you have your ear to the ground. Because when you're intentional about your policy and when you're actually doing things that the community actually wants, then it's gonna be a good thing for the community. Not just thinking, oh well, there are houseless people in this community, and I've never been to a warming center or even interacted with them, so we're gonna move on houseless initiative. Yeah. It's like you have no real world experience of that, and you need to listen. Go into those communities. And listen. People go in those communities and yap and say, I know what your problem is, I'm going to try and solve it. But we need to go in those spaces and listen. Yeah. Because people who know how to fix their community live in that community. People who know how to fix their life know what are the problems.
They're living it every day.
So
I want to ask a question too. So a little bit, like, can I rewind a little bit?
Yeah.
You said that you played sports, you played college sports and stuff. Was your trajectory always to kind of be an activist and be in politics, or like how did you even get like your footing into this? I mean, maybe you went to school, you're like in college, like I want to be a writer, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, wait, I'm going to switch my major, I'm going to switch this. Like, what is that something that you always thought you were doing?
Kind of what got me in the activist realm and even the policy and political realm was around when I was talking when I came out on the Huffington Post and nationally, and it was in a very conservative state in South Dakota. Not only did we have at the time the state legislature introduce an anti-trans bill that would bar transgender people from competing in high school and college athletics. So to me, that was kind of my first opportunity to be like, you know, I have a very supportive coach, I have a very supportive team, and at some point I'm privileged for that too, and realizing the idea that we would lock out any segment of our community from having anything I did or even being able to compete, the true and authentic self, really bothered me. And that's one thing I do have a big concern with even our community is that the person who mobilized and started the LGBTQ movement was a black trans woman who threw that brick. But then in the year 2021, that's the most targeted portion of our community, and it's showed that the movement has not fully benefited all of us. So that was kind of my moment where it's like, you know, this doesn't affect me, but I should be able to speak up on this, and it's wrong that there are people targeting our trans allies, and that's what kind of pushed me out to. And I went down to state legislature. I got the national media to get petitions, and we had people, big Olympic athletes like Chris Moser jump in, and it's like we killed the bill, and it's like that's how we go about that, and that's really what pushed me into that, because it's me realizing, and it's always kind of and I know we use a lot of MLK quotes, but an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So in our vast LGBTQIA community, if one of us is threatened or has negative policy put on us, that should be a threat to all of us. And I wish that our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters would speak up for our trans counterparts.
Why do you think that they don't? I mean, obviously, like for you, it definitely was a buy-in because you had a really good experience with your coach and stuff. So it's like, I feel like you took like, if me as this multicultural American person having my experience that was so positive, like everyone should be able to have that. So that was very, like, how do we get other people to have that buy-in? How do we get queer people?
I think why we don't speak up is because we see it's not directly affecting me. It's not a trans bill against me. So it has nothing to do with me. And I think that's a problem because if we truly had a community where we saw if someone threatened one of our own that we would all go up for arms for them, I think it's because we're just too worried about ourselves and our own experience. Even if you're gay or lesbian, you have a hard life of coming out and being queer, but you're still cisgender. And in a lot of spaces, even here in Kansas City, you're still a white man. And that's kind of tough talking about that and really conveying to a lot of my gay friends that you still have privileges. Even I have privilege as a cisgender male that can pass and not be threatened for being trans. So it's understanding that we all have some point of privilege and coming to their aid if need be. It's just allyship. It's the same with, I know people are like, why are you so outspoken on trans issues or women's issues or Latino issues? And I've gone to every single DACA protest. Right, but it's like, they come out heavy for us in the Black Lives Matter movement.
I do that too.
And
my thing too is like, why aren't you?
Like,
that's
exactly.
Why are you asking why I'm so passionate? Like, why aren't you more passionate? Like, I don't understand that.
It's like, again, why I said their fight should be our fight. And it's as simple as that.
I know, speaking on a personal for myself as a white cisgender gay male, like I remember when gay marriage passed and, and planning Pride and thinking, well, my thought was like, what do we do next? So we got marriage, so we got that equality state, so... Did we? Yeah. So, like, right, I'm like, what's the purpose of Pride? Like, what are we doing? What's the next?
Oh, we are very behind.
But there's no
no.
By just past like transgender can now fight in our like even if you write that and you write it on a piece of paper, what does that look like for a trans individual to be in the military?
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing really changes except for they're able to be there, but they're still not protected by all of the narrative, all of the probably harassment, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but I think that's one thing we have a problem with is because us as a people, the LGBTQIA community, have had such a bare minimum. We get so distracted by victories when it's like we're really behind. Like bare minimum having duty to serve in the military if you want. That's bare minimum. The ability to get married. That's bare minimum.
I feel bad. I feel like because like everyone's so excited and there's like why aren't you excited? I'm like. You realize that you're getting excited over something that everyone else already has.
Are straight
like, and I'm not trying to say that like that's a bad thing, but also like I'm not gonna get like excited because like this shouldn't have happened. Like we should have already been like this shouldn't be like a non-issue.
Yeah.
And the fact that now somebody's giving me something that to my straight friends I'm like that you've had since birth, and now you're gonna give it to my family, like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I talked to my sister about this a couple of weeks ago and how we sort of semi-quasi had this conversation. We were talking about like why do you care is what it's centered around. I was like, because if you have access to all that, and I did identify as straight at one time and was married to a woman. I know, and all this and so like I did that, and I didn't have to seek approval from anybody or permission from anyone or fight for my right to do any of that. And when I came out and broke my contract with the military and got a divorce from my wife, like that transition of...
Start selling a bunch of dicks.
Well, yeah, and I was like, I lost access to all those other privileges that I had, all because of, identifying my truth and living my truth. And I'm like, why?
But
I still have that.
But the different part
they're still
of that
there.
is like for you literally could take that off if you wanted to.
A trans individual can't do that.
They can't. And a person of color, we can't change the color of skin.
No, and I think that's where I stressed to my sister, where I'm like, why don't you care as much as I do about these issues? It's like, they impact my friends, individuals that I consider family. Like, it's important.
I love it because you take it on because it impacts my friends, but it also, my friends impact me. So, like, even if I am a white cis male, like, even if I can be passable and have natural hair color and not wear tight clothes or gay affiliated things, I can still walk out and have way more privilege because I'm a white presenting male.
Yeah.
But like my friends, like that affects me. I feel like, I don't know, maybe we need to just be more friends more with women, people of color, and transgender humans. Like, is that so difficult?
I think just practice, like a tenth of empathy, and a dash of kindness, and your world's a different place right there. If you're able just to impact those two little things within yourself, you will impact the world around yourself.
Get to know somebody outside your box.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I'm going to focus on that this month.
And getting to know somebody?
Getting to know people that I wouldn't normally approach or normally be in my demographic or circle of things.
I don't want to hang out with Republicans.
Why? Don't you ever just want to be the smartest person in the room?
When you say that, I'm like, it never occurred to me to look at it that way.
Silver lining. That's not fall.
Now I want to.
Oh my goodness.
So I want to talk about the LGBTQ commission. Like, not about the formation, because I think commissions happen, they come and go. But like the impact that means for the community, what a commission does in the city, and how one that's focused on LGBTQ issues, like the impact that can have.
Yeah, so what, I will be honest, so the city that's leading the most when it comes to LGBTQ issues right now, and in a southern state like ours, would be the city of Atlanta. Not only did they form a commission of, it first started out with 13 people, then expanded out to 38 members, but I mean, they've seen a lot for the LGBTQ community. Not only a business district, but outside investment to the community. thank you. Outside investment to the community jumped to 40% over the 6 year time that they were created. And not only that, crimes against people of color in the LGBT community decreased by 70%, because not only was there representation, but it's a commission that uplifts the resources and the people already doing the work, and then acting as one unified voice on places we may fall behind on. So then taking that and looking at Kansas City, I mean, we have probably 60 LGBTQ organizations who are working in different segments, doing a lot of amazing work. But one thing I get worried about is there's a vast community, and it seems like everyone's growing in their own direction. So what I thought was not only to have a governing structure, which is the City of Kansas City government, but a 13-member commission that would be very well representative of our vast community that could also make subcommittees on different issues. If we had an HIV/AIDS task force, or a commission that would for job placement and or to reduce the rate at which trans people are murdered in our city, then stuff like that. But it's one central point where everyone feels that they could be represented, but that issues of the entire community could be presented to the rest of the Kansas City community. So hopefully, I think it would increase collaboration and decrease the duplication of work we see in our community, but also, I mean, moving as one unified voice in our community on places we fall behind. And that's primarily trans representation, trans policy, trans healthcare, and trans access to job placement, and also people of color. So I think that it's an opportunity to not only have this, but I knew that it was very fragile as well, that this couldn't be another affluent board that is primarily white in one segment of our community. So I want this to be kind of the palette of our entire community that is going to lead with equity and be always centering of every single segment of our community. So I think that's completely what the community needs right now, and it's an opportunity for us to be unified behind things. I know we have a very big, vast community, and for the longevity of this, I want there to be some sense of a community, because I feel like there's not a community right now. I mean, to those doing the work that are pushing the narrative, there is a sense of community, but I want everyone to feel like they're a part of a community.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I'm done. I know it's a lot, but that's kind of my dream and why we did it. Yeah. And we have 42 nominations from all the organizations.
Wow.
So
that's just incredible.
For 13 commissioners, they're going to be not only well supported, but there's an opportunity for more people to serve in subcommittees and be also uplifted. And people who have been doing the work that are finally getting recognized and even having more resources, more funding from the city to uplift their voices.
I think what I like about that most is that intentional representation, like seeking out those individuals and not just placing, more white people in positions of power, but actually placing individuals who are on the streets, who are actually doing the work into those positions.
And I realize that it's because one thing I think we have a problem with in the city is we get disenfranchised communities and people of color their hopes up, and then we disappoint. So I knew that if we were going to get every single part of the community their hopes up for an LGBTQ commission, that it needed to be done right, and that it was a very fragile thing as well. So making sure that everyone, and we did a press conference, did TV, we did town halls, we emailed everyone on a newsletter, but making sure that everyone, no matter if you knew about government or wanted, that you had an opportunity to serve on this commission. So that's what we came up with, the names, but also I feel that although we have a very big, vast community, I think how problems get solved is those closest to the pain need to be the closest to power. So uplifting our black trans women who are disproportionately murdered in the city, and that's not, if we had more of a community, we would be sounding the alarms on that, and there's a problem in our city. So I think that this commission is a way to do that and really push that narrative to city council and the mayor that we are in a crisis right now.
And it's a place for those organizations that submitted individuals to be in those leadership roles to coalesce and focus. I think back to when Samantha Ruggles was the executive director for the Center for Inclusion. This was 2-3 years ago, where they had those big community meetings where they brought like 90 plus organizations together, and that was a start of. We could have. Nobody knew exactly the direction that was going to go and what it was, and I had my own ideas of what was happening, and like there was an opportunity there to like get all these stratified organizations, which are competing for resources, competing for individuals to participate, to work together to solve some of the issues in our community, and like that wasn't approached that way.
Yeah,
and that this is like modeling for those organizations a way to do that outside of a governmental support system. I like that.
So I know I don't know everything about the community. I know that I only know so much, but I know governing structures and how we go about uplifting a community. And I know that this commission is going to be filled with some truly gifted and amazing people. And that's all I wanted to do.
Do we know when they're going to be announced?
I'm hoping. So they have 3 weeks. We've sent all the names to the mayor and city council. So I'm hoping at the end of February we have a formal ceremony where we're swearing in 13 commissioners. So I think,
nice.
And also it's the first in the state and the first in Kansas City's history to have an LGBTQ governing body that is attached to a municipality and a government entity. So it's not only historic, but whoever those first 13 commissioners are, I mean, they have a lot of work to do, but it's also, I don't want this also to be kind of like we're cleaning up or kind of solving a lot of the bad things of our community, and that's people trying to murder our trans counterparts. But I really want this to be a proactive thing as well, that we are having bigger and better prides, that we are having LGBTQ job fairs, that we are having one day an LGBTQ district, a business district, or a community like Chicago and Atlanta. I'm hoping that we can not only walk and chew gum and get our own house in order and protect every single person in our community, but also uplift and further expand out our community and how we do that. I think if we had more jobs in a neighborhood and a business district, that there would be more of a community forming if we were actually working as one.
I have a couple of things to ask.
Yeah.
3 things. I would say you just mentioned Chicago and you just mentioned Atlanta and stuff. And I mean, I've been in this community for about 5 years and I've seen a whole influx of things. One of the things was Center of Inclusion. I've helped try to organize multiple things like that to even bring some leadership together and, meet each other and just be friends. And it's not be about work, but also I feel like the city definitely tries to reinvent the wheel multiple times. What makes this initiative that you're doing any different than those? And we'll start there.
Yeah, so I think what makes this initiative...
Have you looked at other cities and like other things and what they're doing? You mentioned like I don't know, I just feel like a lot of things... I think the city is great. I love it. I'm excited. I wish that I could see I could vote on some people and be like, 13 people, this would be great. I feel like that's a definite 100% move forward. But I don't know,
as in reinventing the wheel in Kansas City or other cities.
I feel like Kansas City has been reinventing the wheel on this, specifically what you're doing. I hope that this will be this is it. This is the wheel. We don't have to reinvent it. This is going to move forward, be great. But when you have talked about this with everyone over the past few months and trying to get your 13 people, getting them all or whatever, I mean, hasn't that conversation come up about maybe reinventing the wheel as much as...
Not that I've heard. I mean, this is the first time that an LGBTQ commission has been at the city, and why I'll be completely honest with y'all is why I didn't want to make this structure as an independent business or work with one organization is because I feel that the city of Kansas City, in constituting and creating an official commission, it can remain unbiased, that it can remain a center point where we're not taking favorites towards everyone, we're the city, and that people could just funnel in their resources, funnel in their time, and that they would truly feel represented in that we weren't taking favorites at all. And I think that because the city's behind it, it's an actual government entity of the city of Kansas City, that there's power and weight behind it.
Which is why I think that it will work. Because in the past, the reinvention of the will that I've seen is because people want to take it on and be like, this is mine, I'm in charge of it. And whole
No.
point of you doing this
It's
isn't about
no
you being
one-
in charge.
it's no
It's
one's-
about the
it's-
community
yeah,
being
it's
in
the-
charge.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about having that voice from every person.
And then what's good with the city is a government, and I'm not all for big government. I don't want to think, but the government of
Same, but I
the
mean, I
city,
think
Kansas
structure-
City.
I think sometimes people like don't understand that government sometimes means structure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so it's
So,
like having
exactly.
that space.
so an organization, a nonprofit, and any of these groups could fail at any time. With having this commission, we ensure the longevity that our people will always have a voice. So well past any of our time, that this structure will always be there. And yes, there are going to be highs and lows for this commission, but always understanding that system is going to stand the test of time. So that's what I ultimately wanted for the community, and that's why we didn't, because there are a lot of people that said you should do this independently, because then you could just appoint your own people and be selective. And it's like, there are going to be people who feel that it wasn't equitable. So I think that if it's fair, we let everyone come in, and then the appointment process happens by the mayor and the city council, and they have interviews, they vet everyone, then that's probably the fairest way I can think of.
Yeah, I love that. And I like that. I mean, one of the questions I had was whether or not, there's a new mayor and this commission gets written off. And so I think it's really important that it's got longevity to it and that it's going to be around.
So I actually did think about that. So because it's a 13-person commission, 6 of those commissioners come from the different city council districts, and that would allow for different socioeconomic diversity as well. And then the 7 other are appointed by the mayor in specialties of housing, public safety, in healthcare and business and so on and so forth. But because it's kind of a mix, the mayor can't write it off because it's a hybrid commission. So he would not only have to have the city council's approval to write that off, but also then the mayor's vote. So it's not an executive commission. I purposely did that so an out-of-control city council or mayor couldn't just write it off. That you would need a majority vote to dissolve it.
It's not that you would ever have to think about an out-of-control city mayor. That's so sad.
Well,
my other question would be too, like, I mean, I feel like COVID's been such a double-edged sword on some things. I mean, like, I think without COVID, we wouldn't have had such a strong Black Lives Matter movement, which we definitely need and still need to press on. I think it's given a lot of people time. Mm-hmm. It's given a lot of people time.
Yeah.
Like, bitch, I got time. Like, I ain't going to work.
I'm gonna watch that video.
I got time. I could do this. But also, like, how has that been, like, doing all this process and trying to meet with people and talk to people and navigate and build those relationships during COVID? Like, I feel like that's also a thing. Like, it's been such a struggle that you can't just be like, hey, meet me for lunch down here. And you're like, bitch, that place has been closed for 3 months.
Yeah, so I actually think COVID has, even personally in my life and all the work we're doing in the different segments, COVID's made everything absolutely easier because I've met with every single organization over Zoom or in person, and that's 60 organizations. And thinking if they were busy doing their
COVID gives time.
Yeah. So everyone was able to be on Zoom, but also, as you said, on the Black Lives Matter movement and this, people have time and people are hungry for something to change. Not only do we have a problem with Black people being slain in our country, but I mean, this giving a lot of people a time to say, hey, we have a problem of trans people being murdered in our city. So it's giving people who are already hungry an opportunity to invest their time and do that. And that's why everyone's been completely on board and just wanting to, let's get this going. Like, because ultimately, yes, COVID's going to end one day, and I would rather us have something to get back to. And we've moved somewhere as a community over time.
Yeah. I think it's also given people an opportunity, at least for me, because you slow down from work and slow down from things because you can't do as much things. It's given me more time to be like more personal with people that maybe I've known for a while, but I've never really got to know them. It's only been like a work thing. Like, I call you because I need this, you call me because this needs to happen and we're moving forward, but like never really connecting as humans. I feel like COVID's actually given me time to connect with even some of my close friends who I thought were close, and I'm like, we're a lot closer now. Yeah. Because I've got to like share more intimate conversation about our lives and our family and our history and our dreams and our wants and our hopes and all these things, which also too, because big conversation even through everything with that organization that we were fighting against this summer, but also Black Lives Matters movement, like all these things. It's like you get to really see a lot of people's hearts because they have time to really like show those things because they're not focused on tasks and work and jobs and doing this and doing this.
They don't have an event coming up. They're not coordinating for that or planning or
It's interesting.
It is. So, what do you think about the protests from this summer for racial justice and how that is shaping Kansas City.
Yeah. So.
I think you've got something to say.
I will be completely honest. My work and my background was primarily LGBTQ issues and activism at the time, and I know I stepped on a lot of people's feet when I jumped into the civil rights realm and led the first protest here in Kansas City in June of 2020.
Wait, let's back up. Why do you say that you stepped on people?
But I'm going to explain it, girlfriend.
I was like, I put my finger on my knee and follow up, and I was like,
I forget.
So I'm going to get to
what you're saying, but I don't want to forget what you said.
And that was kind of, and why I didn't get so involved the first time the Black Lives Matter movement went off is because I was in South Dakota and I was also wrestling, so they are not protesting about no Black Lives Matter in South Dakota. So
without one block.
Yeah. So in Kansas City, I mean, I thought, where the same exact thing happened. The George Floyd said the same exact words as Eric Gardner, that I can't breathe. And it showed that what they said to the activist community, sit down, we'll work on the policy and we'll make sure this doesn't happen, obviously did not work the first time. No. So I felt emboldened to jump in because I'm like, we need to change policy. We need to make sure that this never happens again. And that's why I protest. I don't protest as a protest. I protest so that we can use the power of the people to get policy change so that one day we don't have to protest about the same thing in the future.
Exactly.
So we need to be protesting not to protest anymore and eventually have a world where we're not yelling in the streets about injustices. So one thing I got involved with and I jumped into that is because I really wanted to make sure that this was done right. And there have been a lot of organizations who have done this work, but I think when you lead an organization, when you lead a movement, you need to lead by example. So people who have been doing the work, and me as a Black individual and a queer individual, a lot of the people I worked with, because it's the Black Lives Matter movement was seen as a Black issue for Black people, led by Black people. Yep. So one thing I had a problem with that is when you have Black organizers, invite just Black people and have Black speakers, to me that's preaching to the choir. So when you create this vast coalition of white people, Black people, indigenous people, Hispanic people, LGBTQ people, and we make it everyone's problem, that's why this thing was moving, because everyone, no matter who you were, said that this is enough, that there's a problem. So that's why I jumped in, is to make sure that this was a vast coalition, that everyone was a part of this and everyone moved along with this. And I got a lot of pushback from the deep part of our Black community that said that this movement should not be led by a gay person. And then I got a lot of pushback for this, and the Black Lives Matter movement is a Black issue. We shouldn't be trying to, and it's like, I think this issue is everyone's issue, and everyone needs to make the issue of Black people being slain in the streets their issue. Mm-hmm. So that's why I jumped in and I said, we need to do this right, and that's why our movement is still surviving to this day, because we made it everyone's problem in this community. And because Black people have been doing it for so long, have been carrying this torch, have been protesting and putting themselves forward, and I think when we ensure that it's everyone's problem, that it's going to survive longer. So that's why I jumped in, and I know I got pushback from some part of the Black community that still has, especially some of our pastor community, that still has homophobic and especially transphobic sentiments. It's like every time we had a protest, every time I was given the mic, I always centered that Black Lives Matter, but also that Black trans lives matter. And that pissed a lot of people off. But the new wave and the new generation, White Rose, Black Rainbow, KC Tenants, the new wave of activists are about everyone. So that's...
No, it does. There's an event coming up in March called Agape for people living with HIV, and it's centered for male individuals to participate in. And I got wrangled into being a part of that planning process, and I'm giving a workshop there now. Mm-hmm. But part of that, like we're talking about speakers and who should be speakers and stuff like that. And I said, well, we need to have like a Black trans individual come up and speak to the concerns in their community to educate everybody. And it's a pastor running it because this Agape is a Christian-focused event. And there was immediate pushback about, like, do we need a trans person? Like, why are we talking about that? And I was like, if you feel at any moment that what I bring up doesn't fit the community, I was like, then you need to have that person there. I was like, the fact that you have a anxiety or bias to having that person come and speak to a group of individuals because you're a Christian-based organization, I was like, that means to me even more that you need to have that person come and speak.
Your table's too small.
Yeah, I was like, and if you don't, I was like, what is the outcome? Like, you don't want to educate? You don't want to learn from somebody else's experience?
Touch on that what you just said, too. It's like we need to have a Black transgendered human to be on our narrative. And I think a lot of people, especially we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about, you know, like I'm probably the only POC owner and GM of a queer bar in this community out of the 6. The rest are all white. They've always been white.
Yeah.
I have a Black employee, and we've talked, and I've tried to, you know, talk to her because coming in, you know, she does feel tokenized a lot, and so do I sometimes. But the difference is like intentional and tokenized are two different things.
Exactly.
And I love what you said last week. It's like tokenized means that you move over and put a chair. Intentional means you just make your table longer and give them more their own space.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that's something too that like needs to be opened up for conversation a lot
Well,
of
it's
times.
part of using your privilege. Like, you know, I was asked to be on that group because of the grant I worked on, and the grant I work on is for white males.
But they only wanted a section of your voice.
They only wanted a section of my voice.
And I love it. Like you don't get you either get all of it or you don't get anything.
Exactly. You know, like if you want participation and you want community engagement, then you need individuals who are going to represent the community. I mean, they want to like fly somebody in, and I was like,
why?
We have a community of leaders. Reach out to them and don't. You know, you don't have to always go with the same individuals every time. You want to hear different stories and different experiences. Ask those individuals if they have a friend or somebody they know in the community to bring on. And there's all this, you know, like, well, you know, we just, you know, we really want to focus on those big ticket people. And I'm like, we're not making money. Like, this is an education opportunity.
And this church is more about, like, politics and getting more funding. It's not really about community.
I'm like, the center of it all is supposed to be addressing
who are you serving?
HIV. And
are you serving your pockets? Or are you serving the voices? Are you serving change? Are you serving like inclusivity and embracing love and change? Like, are you just embracing some change and a couple dollar bills?
So touching on,
which is fine,
bringing it full circle to what the murder of George Floyd did and like galvanizing the racial justice movement forward. It also woke up individuals, myself included, to use your privilege when you are in spaces where you don't see those individuals, you know, who could impact that change and whose narratives need to be heard. Like in that entire panel of dozen plus people who were sitting on there who were planning this, there was not a trans individual, male or female, on that. And I was like, why don't we have somebody here who's right? I was like, you know, they need to be at this table and speaking. And I was like, well, you know what? You're not going to give them space to sit at this table? Well, we're going to make them the headliner then. They get to be the person that tells their narrative. And since you don't want to invite them to the table, we're going to give them the platform to speak. And I'm like, that's the focus that I come from is completely different than where I used to be and the way I saw things. And I think it's important that everybody takes that opportunity. Like you've stepped into your role into helping the community and sort of like bringing a voice to it and coalescing individuals that I didn't even know you could create an LGBTQ commission. And I think it's it can be so impactful and can empower so many other individuals. So yeah, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I think that we talked a little bit, and I wanted to ask you and talk about the whole jumping in of like, I think Lance Pierce was trying to lead this parade or this movement or whatever, and he had a lot of backlash. And then I heard that, you know, like you had jumped in, and then people were even more upset. And I'm like, if you don't want to have a fucking parade, that's fine. But like, why are you getting pissed off? And like you just said, it's like, you know, why me as a Black person would have Black Lives Matter movement and only invite Black people and have it in a Black space and do all these Black things? Like you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah,
and the reality is,
people
like,
hate when I say that,
but that's the reality.
We don't know racism exists.
But if you think about that too, you think like, you know, like because it affects Latino community, like we're getting put in cages this past year. You know, it affects like no shade white people. I mean, the Holocaust was a real thing. They killed a bunch of fucking white people. You know, queer people included in those things. Like, so it's affected all of us. And the biggest thing is that we all have been affected by not being treated equally. You know, unfortunately, in American culture, Black people have had a lot worse. You know, but we shouldn't not talk about those things, and we shouldn't just keep trying to move forward to make those changes. But those changes aren't going to be made just by Black people. Those changes with Mexicans being put in cages are not just going to be changed by Mexican people. It's going to be changed with allyship, with friendship, with us moving together, moving forward, and us sometimes hearing things that we don't want to hear, and really taking a look at things that are really ugly that we don't want to see. You know,
and that's why I feel. I mean, although I've only been in this space for a short time, that why we've made a lot of Black policy strides in this city, because we've had a very strong coalition where we're not kind of splintering the community, that the community is all united behind this issue. And that I think that's how people empower and who hold up systems of oppression try to divide us or say, well, this is only for you. And it's like, that's a problem I also see. It needs to be about us and not just one person, because there's the Black community is like, well, this is a Black issue, and the LGBTQ community is like, well, that's not a Black issue, and the Latino community is doing their own thing. But when we have a bigger coalition where everyone's in it, they can't split us. And when we have strength in numbers, it's just simple when we go about policy and being equitable, but then also making sure that we're not just passing Black policy with our strength, that we're passing Latino policy, Indigenous policy, LGBT. So that's why it may seem like I'm doing a lot of things, but it's like when we're united behind things, we need to make sure that everyone's getting a piece of equity.
And like we talked about earlier, when your friend's just like, I don't understand, like, you're not a woman, you're not trans, why are you so like out front, why are you speaking? And like my neighbors are like, why aren't you not? Why aren't you using your voice?
Yeah.
Like, because you have nothing to gain from it, but you really do, because one day you don't know who your best friend's going to be, who your child is going to be, who your cousin is going to give birth to that is related to you and have these issues. Does it take that for you to like, okay, now this is my issue? Should have always been your issue. Humanity should always be your issue. Equality should always be your issue.
Equitable access to justice. Yeah.
Should be all of our issues, all the time, every day.
I think people are slowly coming to that realization.
It is, you know, and I grew up too, like, you know, very Hispanic, and there, you know, I remember when my sister married her first husband, who was Black, and my family threw a fit. You know, and to me, like, growing up with my family and how they were and amazing and fun or whatever, hearing, like, my grandparents say it, I was like, what did you just say? And they're like, what? And I'm like, that's so fucking racist. And I was like, how could you be racist when you're brown? And then, you know, growing up, talking, coming out, being gay, and like stuff like that. I remember, I may have told you the story before, that my dad said, he told me one time, he was like, you know, back when I was growing up, like, everything was black and white. If you weren't white, you were Black. And so we were Hispanic. He was like, I used to have to use the black water fountain. I used to have to, when I went to Sonic, there was a white line and there was a not white line. And the people that were in the not white line, when you went up there, you had to give money and pay first before they would even take your order. White people, they would come to you, they would give you your food, and then you would pay when you were done. Because like, so to me, it's like, if you're not white, then you're Black. Everything is Black. We are Black. We are this. And I was like, that's so weird that you grew up with that in your lifetime, and I have never had to really deal with that. You know, I think maybe I've been called a faggot like 3 times in my life, but girl, you're right, I am a faggot.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I remember, you know, and this is like me. I grew up in Louisiana, just north of Shreveport, like 30 minutes north in a small town, and I mean, it was still segregated. The laundromat that my family used, we used the white side of the laundromat, and there was a black side of the laundromat, and Black individuals were not allowed to come into the laundromat. They had to come to the side door, ring a bell. When the lady had time, she would go over there, or I guess when she felt like she would go over there, and she would get them change, whatever, to use the machines, but they would have to go on the back side and use the older machines. And I mean, that, you know, the bars were still segregated. We didn't go swimming at the pool when there were Black people at the pool. I mean, that's the way we grew up. And when you were talking about that with your dad, I was like, it you know, that wasn't long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was only 20 years ago when I lived in Louisiana and that was taking place, or a little over 20 years ago. So
it's something that's taken out of culture too. And ours is like, I always wonder what it was like for You know, I mean, we had a whole generation wiped out by the, 1980s AIDS epidemic. And I'm like, what was it like for queer people back then when, Black people and everyone that wasn't white being segregated against? Like, what was it like for queer people? I mean, you couldn't really be open and out, but like, if you were labeled as a faggot, did you have to use this water fountain? Did you have to go to this bathroom? Like all these things. And also, like, were people that were not white, were they accepting? It's like, I thought my family was always accepting. So I heard my grandparents, I'm like, oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
But also, too, that's, generational, whatever it is. It's not right. But my sister had her first kid. My grandparents definitely came around and was like, oh, like, we love her. We love you. He's cool.
Right, yeah, it's that whole, once you know somebody and you hear that story.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like that. Humanity shouldn't have to be reliant on when it affects you directly or indirectly like that.
Yeah, you should just want better for everybody else.
You should.
And equal access to what you have access to.
You should.
That's such an
easy thing to say, but like, how do you, like, yeah.
But how do you remove racism? That's a harder subject. That's definitely, we don't have time for that. If only. It was that easy.
Maybe if we just, like, all, like, what is it, like, dog sense of color? Maybe just, like, I don't know. No, I really like pink and, like, purple.
Our dog likes blue. Do they see color?
I don't know. I don't mean to ask them, but, like, they don't ever say anything. This has been a really interesting and fun conversation. I feel like I got to know you a little bit better. And I'm really excited. And, yeah.
Ace, do we have... I didn't have any questions on my end from viewers. I didn't know if you did on your end. I was just checking in. I didn't have any questions on my end. Nope. I just have a few likes. So, Justice, I want to thank you for sharing this time with us. And part of Black history is making history. And you've made history this year with the LGBTQ Commission and being a part of that process. And where do people go to learn more about this? Yes. Do they just contact you directly and you just answer like a slew of questions every single day?
Yeah, that's probably or contact your council person. I've sent them all the information. So
that's great.
So when their constituency asks questions, they can do it. That's also a problem we also face is having no queer representation in the government. I mean, not only there, but in a lot of places. So
we'll say we have a Secretary of Transportation now who is gay identifying, so that's fun and exciting and not acknowledged enough, I guess. I don't know. That someone made it that far at least.
Yeah, I think I feel like that's the highest level of government any LGBTQ person is.
Openly, LGBTQ.
Openly, yeah. I'm sure there's been some
president or two.
That was his best friend.
Allegedly.
So I think that is a really good point you made. Like knowing who your council person is, and knowing that you can engage and ask some questions. So someone can go to their city government site to
kcmo.gov, and right now the council people were given the names, so they're making their appointments now. Or if you want to be appointed to the commission, email and send your information over to them. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's very important. kcmo.gov to go and even listen and see like who your city council people are. Yeah. Get to know them. There's their bio on there. It gives like their sign, like their likes, their dislikes. Never mind. Top bottom. Wait, that's harder.
Speaking of, so I know, I love a good segue.
I almost forgot.
So I have this Love Safer Sex kit here that it's available on Unboxed and Twitter and
what's in it?
Instagram. So not everybody likes safer sex or using a condom, and some people have never heard or used dental dam or something along those lines. So I thought it'd be fun to mail you a free kit with all the stuff in there so that you can try it yourself. Maybe you'll love it, maybe you won't, but at least you've tried it out.
So dental dam or dental damn it?
Dental damn it, yeah. There's like, so they come in a range. So I have grape and mint that I threw in here, but there's vanilla.
Like spearmint or like,
cool.
Yeah.
Not cool mint. Not cool mint.
Spearmint or cool.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, where it's like, it burns. The men's
Yeah,
you don't want that on your
one likes
private
that,
areas.
no.
Yeah, no. It's like a
Ben Gay. Like nobody wants to rub that all over their junk.
no.
I mean, some people
almost
do.
tore my lip.
I'm not trying to like shame anyone's kink.
But so there's dental dams in here, which are these are like grape but whatever flavors you want, we can throw in there. I got these fun condoms that say "Love me, use me."
This? It's like
That's a
a cute
condom.
little.
Yeah, it's a condom holder.
Oh, a condom holder?
Yeah.
Oh,
So you can hold like 2 to 3 condoms in there.
girl, you know, it'd be good if you had like a mirror on this.
Yeah.
Wait.
This is new, so I have this organic.
Oh yeah, I haven't used
lube.
this yet, but you gave me some the other last week.
Organic.
Yeah, this is
you should
really
try this
awesome.
one. Take this lid with you and try it.
So it's almost naked. It's 95% organic lube. So
What's the
super fun.
5% that's not organic?
I don't know. Maybe the packaging.
Keep 5% in
Oh,
the
yeah.
package.
Where's my sheet? I have a sheet from them. What's that say?
Like rubber sheets? Oh, like a pamphlet.
It doesn't have any parabens, petrochemicals, or artificial fragrance. I
So
haven't
it's like
used it either.
a face mask.
Yeah.
It's like a BRA strip.
Just like that. Yeah.
It's like
But when you order this, you can select male, female. You can identify how you want, and that changes the lube you get. So this lube is for external body parts. So that would be like a penis or toys. The other lube I have is made specifically for vaginas.
What about buttholes?
You can use this. I guess you could use the other one for buttholes, but it's made for vaginas or front holes.
Why?
Because it maintains that pH balance.
You don't know the pH
vagina.
balance of my asshole, first of all.
But the vagina, they do have
That's fine. I just like
a
do
good
like
idea.
like a little like squeeze of lime or lemon. Like we're good.
Right, and then you just
Yeah.
splash it and you're totally fine.
Yeah,
Like a
it's like
spritzer?
refreshing. Yes. It's like fart lemonade. It's fine. Whatever.
So go to the site, go to Unboxed page, their Twitter page, their Instagram, and scroll down. It's pinned at the top. It'll be one of the first things you see.
And then you literally will just send me a box full of like
Just like this.
prophylactic, safer sex kit.
Safer Sex Kit. I love Safer Sex Kit. So you're going to get a dental dam, lube, condoms, a condom holder.
And it's free.
It's free. And
Oh my
you're going to
gosh.
get these 2 little things that tell you like how to have a healthy, caring
I thought
relationship
they were
and
coloring books.
ways to
Like I want to color like a penis or like a
Ace.
like a pair of tits.
I completely forgot, but when you said that, I was like, years ago, I ordered these adult coloring books where you like color a penis and a vagina. Oh my god, we should totally do those. We should color those.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. But I could put some of those in there too.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much.
I forgot I had those.
Oh, I never knew you had them, but I'm glad you do.
Yeah, we're gonna color some penises. That'll be fun. And show our art.
Yes. Well, do you have anything to say or add before we go? I mean, is there anything you want to plug? Any Instagram, social media, websites, personal Grindr profile?
So
Your
I would just
OnlyFans,
Your
whatever.
OnlyFans.
So just everyone who's viewing this to help out with not only Houseless United but White Rose and everyone doing the amazing work of helping out our houseless comrades with the warming center. So seeing ways you could donate, give money, give your time to that. And I also forgot, I'm happy we're talking about safe sex, but hopefully if the votes are there tomorrow, we will declare February 7th as Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day from here on out in the city of Kansas City.
Yes.
So further centering the conversation, but then also uplifting and reducing the stigma of those living with HIV and AIDS, that they're our neighbors and yeah.
Yeah. They're your family. They're your friends. You may not know.
Yeah.
Well,
So I appreciate the time, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Ace, do you have anything going on with Woody's this week?
Yeah, I mean, always. I just want to say that Woody's is always a space. It is a White Rose drop-off location for any community donations, blankets, clothing, shoes, whatever, personal hygiene products. We're also still looking to work with Nick Kane for No Shame to be a drop-off space for women or feminine products.
Yeah, I have a whole stack of stuff.
Yes.
For you. Yeah.
We also have safer sex kits at the front door that are free if you just want to come in, grab a couple, and I don't know, maybe stop, have a drink, hang out.
Yeah.
We're still
Get to know your community.
Get to know your community. Definitely. Yeah, thank you so much for being on our show. I appreciate it. Also, in the links below, in the comments below, we'll also throw some more information. We can go to kcmo.gov, somewhere down here.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching has any questions, definitely make sure that you leave some in the comments and we'll get back to you and answer them. And if anybody is out there that would like to be on our show and talk to us or have an organization that they think would be great, let us know, because we're always looking for more people to talk to.
It turns out we don't know everybody.
Yeah, it's so wild. Right?
I know.
Also, too, we love everybody for watching Unboxed. The show is just basically to open up conversation, and we hope that the conversation we had today does not stop here, does not stop with us, that it keeps going. You guys talk about it with your friends, your family, your community, your partners, the people at the gas station, anybody that you are chatting with on AOL chat, anybody on Grindr, any door person.
That anonymous person that comes over for a...
You can be blindfolded with your ass up and still have conversation about social justice. So, just putting it out there.
Seriously.
100%. Love that.
Wear your mask.
Love that journey. Mask for mask. Also, organic lube. Okay, man. Wes?
Don't forget to order your free Love Saver Sex Kit. When you're on there, the site, you can select any of those items. They're all free. We'll mail all of that stuff to you. It's a free HIV at-home test kit. Any of that stuff that you want, you can have for free. Much love to everybody. Stay safe. Protect your community. Know your status. Wear a mask.
I love all those things.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.